We are in Astoria, Queens today, just steps away from the new office and steps away from where so many of us met and spent time long before the Glass Cannon Network was a thing. And I'm meeting up with old Joe O'Brien at one of our favorite bars, Sweet Afton. So let me tell you a funny story before I have to sit and listen to you for an hour. This martini is a pickle martini that is made with McClure's pickles from Brooklyn.
Oh, the famous McClure's.
Yeah, and the pickle, don't worry, don't toast me, just take a drink like a savage.
I'm smelling it.
It's made with McClure's pickles, which you can get them all around the world. But at the time, when this place first opened, it was like, yeah, you can get them in Brooklyn. There were a couple artisanal places that had it. My first date with my wife was here. We went to a place called Mexico for a beer or two, and I was like, you want to keep hanging out? And we came here and we got pickle martinis. And
you talked her into a pickle martini.
I did.
Huh?
And then we got married 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later.
Cheers.
Later that night.
So this could be the beginning of our marriage.
Oh, that's very good.
They're spicy pickles. The brine is actually the jalapeno pickle brine.
I've never had the pickle martini here.
You've never had
And
a pickle
I've been
martini?
here a ton. It's so funny. I didn't know that your first date was here.
Yeah.
Did you know, coming full circle, I consider this bar to be, to put it mildly, this is the last bar that I was in as a single man. It was the last night of being single, really, was in this bar. I had my birthday in this bar, and Erin, my wife, was there as a friend.
Oh, that's right.
Hanging
was this
out.
bar?
That was this bar.
I was bartending this night. That's why I couldn't come. I was bartending that
Our
night.
GM at the time was there.
Yeah,
I think Skid was there.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I had a crush on her, but I didn't tell her because she was my friend. And George came. Kansas City George came.
Yeah.
And I guess you didn't know this because you weren't there. He came and he brought these two, like, Adonis Kansas men who were like, they looked like they could have played on K-State's football team.
I met those dudes, and they were filmmakers. They had
yes, exactly.
unlimited money.
And they were incredibly handsome. And I had unlimited money. And they walked in the bar, and my now wife was like, hello, because she's from Oklahoma. So like she likes this like Midwest style kind of dude.
Corn-fed, I think they call it.
Corn-fed,
Yeah.
that's the word. So I'm sitting in the back of the bar, not with a pickle martini, with just a beer. And I'm looking over and I'm like, God damn it, George! I'm so mad because she's like, hi, and my wife is tall, and they were like 6'3", like really bringing it.
And you're like 4 or 5.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, this is going to be awful. And at the end of the night, I was like, that's it. I gotta say something. And I didn't because I'm a coward.
No.
And 3 days later, she said something to me.
It's true.
She was like, you need to lock this shit down or I'm not gonna be your friend anymore.
My favorite part of this story is that this is only half the story that we can tell for YouTube. Francis and Matt will tell you later. That's great.
There's a lot of drama.
I knew you picked this bar, specifically because you had some ties to it, but I didn't know that this was the bar that had.
I always consider this bar like that was the last night that I was like, I can't do it anymore. I got to marry this woman. It was great, and I mean, we dated for 2 years before we even got engaged. But this was the place.
That's so funny. And this bar, when it first opened, before it opened, I applied for a bartender job here. I walked in.
This would have been a sweet place to bartend.
I mean, I lived here, and I was out of work for a while. I was like, please hire me, and they're like, you're not Irish. And so they didn't, and so I left here.
This guy who just got you those drinks is Irish bro.
The owners are Irish, so that's how it works. And so I left here being like, fuck, I really want that job, but I don't think I'm gonna get it. I had one more call in the city, and I went to Smith's Bar in Hell's Kitchen, and I walked into an open call. And I mean, open call for bartending is like, you might as well be open call for the fucking Rockettes. It's impossible to get a bartending job. And I got hired by that job, and that was
It's so funny that they use the same terminology that actors use about being on a TV show. It's like an open call. It's like, it's all the same people, the same industry. Actors just trying to be bartenders, bartenders trying to be actors.
And I got that job, and that's where, I worked, and that was the last bartending job I ever had.
That's where we discussed hundreds of hours of Giant Slayer.
Giant Slayer, yeah.
We talked about character constantly in that bar. I would just come over and sit over and lean over. I'd talk about my character for a while, and then you'd be like, I have to go take care of some customers.
Here's another $100 worth of free drinks and shots.
Yes, exactly.
I would just give away the bar.
I kept wondering, like, when is he going to get fired? Like, straight up let go.
It was so fun because you would come in with Skid, and we'd be playing left, right, center, like the bartenders and I, and then like other staff would we're gambling with money.
Like, is this legal? There's this cash all over the bar. What is this, 1926? Like,
those were the times. And then last important thing about this story is when they opened up other bars in Astoria, the second bar they opened was the Bonnie, which is where you had your post-wedding drinks before the reception.
So you have the wedding and then you have the reception, and in between, when the bridal party's taking pictures and everything like that, you gotta feed the Irish family drinks. And so I was like, we rented space at the Bonnie, which is this exact bar just up like 4 blocks.
Yeah. Well, this was a fun trip down memory lane, but let's get
Is it over?
It's over.
I've got one more though. Does everybody know that this is Skid's block?
Wait.
Skid lived on this block.
That's right.
And the Woodman from Degenerate Dungeon.
He lived
They were
with
roommates
Skid,
together on this block.
And our agent, Kevin Castro.
And our agent.
Our tour manager.
It's a hot street.
Yeah.
It's a hot street. And now we're just a couple blocks from the studio. Like, the studio's a couple blocks away.
Right. This will be our post-show hangout. We'll
Yes.
come here. Every episode has to have a rap party.
Every episode.
Hundreds of rap parties.
We have so much money to just throw around. Pickle martinis for everybody. Bottle service.
Another picture of pickle martinis, Mike.
Another picture of pickle martinis. They just put a toothpick with 11 pickles into the top of it.
Just the whole jar of McClares. We joke, but I do see us, in some world hanging out here more often with the cast and stuff.
The end of book 1.
End of book 1. That's right. We'll do seasonal hangs. That's right. Skid lived not too far away from here.
So the show's seasonal. It's going to have big breaks in between the books.
The
is that
plan
what you said?
is to do every 10 episodes, take 20 episodes off. Just to maintain a pace that makes me comfortable.
10 episodes, 20 weeks off.
Right.
It's a true Netflix sort of method.
That's the Netflix model. I'm glad you brought it up.
And it really works for podcasts.
I kind of want to do a release schedule like The Sopranos. We'll do a season, and then a couple years later, you get a second season.
And then you get half a season, with the second half coming 1 year later. Just call it a different season.
That's what we're going to do, that model. No, but there is a lot of history here, and I knew that our video would be the longest because there's a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
But we got to talk about why we're really here today.
Okay.
And that's your character. I know very little about your character. I think you feel personally hurt that I haven't asked you more about it.
Actually, I do think it's a little weird that you haven't asked me more about it, but the more I've gone down the twists and turns of creating this character, I was talking to Francis about it because he was talking about character creation, and as he's getting more and more into the business, he's seeing more and more of this. And I was just like, the more time you have to think about the character, the worse it gets. Because you just keep spiraling into different directions, and you have different ideas, and which idea is the better idea? It's sometimes when you have less time, it can be a little bit tighter.
Interesting.
So I know about as much about my character as you probably do at this point.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why I didn't ask you. One, I don't really care. Two, I wanted to hear it here. And three, I think those twists and turns, which you see as meandering from the best ideas, actually, you're still finding the best idea.
Right, which is why I sort of came to, I think, a place where I'm happy, where it's just I need to let it go, Yeah. I need to just have an idea and then just kind of leave a lot of it open. But there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, frankly, off camera. I don't want to be on camera to talk about all this because it's stuff that's I'm not sure of yet, and I want to see how the story develops, and I want to get into the AP to help fill in some of that backstory.
And that's
I have questions for you, so let me know when I can get out my list.
I figured you would. This is like that episode of The Office where Dwight is being interviewed by Andy to get into Cornell, and then he flips it and starts interviewing the interviewer.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
Can't get this one wrong.
Couple of friends, couple pickle martinis.
Just a couple buddies drinking pickle martinis at 9 a.m.
Talking about characters. The bartender is looking over at us what is going on?
I just finished my shift from last night. Ancestry and class. Give it to me straight.
All right, diving straight in. I will say ancestry is human.
Okay.
Class is cleric.
cleric.
It is time. We got a goddamn cleric. It's party!
The
And
glass
no
cannon.
one's willing to do it.
Yeah.
But I am. I'm willing to take that book. But that's a joke, because as I've gotten into it, I've gotten so excited about this idea, exploring the 2E cleric, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say I'm playing around with the idea of a different, like it's human, but sort of a different heritage, like a homebrew-ish heritage.
Oh.
So not mechanical, flavor-based, but I like the idea of a heritage, or maybe heritage, I guess, I don't know if heritage is the right word in 2E as much as a nationality kind of thing. It's like a different kind of human people from a different place that I haven't seen, I don't think, in Galarian lore. So I'm sort of
Spanish?
Yes, it's called Spanish.
Are you a Spanish person?
I'm a Spanish person.
You're getting back to your roots.
I'm just going to speak Spanish on the podcast and be like, this strange language you don't understand.
What sort of romantic language is that from this human? Now, I knew cleric because we had pre-decided or talked about that.
Yeah.
And I assumed human because you're not very creative. But I
take umbrage with that. I mean, I was thinking back through, and like, it's like almost all non-humans.
Yeah.
If you think about my characters.
It's true. Lork.
The main ones, Lork, Sir Will, Dalgrith, freaking Dax, rattling off the main one. I mean, Foley, Averxius, that they're all non-human.
That's true.
And Raiders as well, Nico, and I mean, they're all non-human.
That's true. That's true. You're right.
And I feel like not only did I want to get back to that a little bit, well, actually, Ancestry to me is not like a starting point. Ancestry to me is so class is kind of a starting point for me. Ancestry, I work back a little bit. Human always works. But I wanted to see what options there were around cleric that felt like they could work, mechanically. I do like to kind of play mechanically into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Human works for everything though. But in this case, the inspiration that I had, the feeling that I had, I saw the character as human. And it's just like, when I see it that way, I kind of got to move forward that way.
Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the eggheads, that contrary to past iterations of the game going back to like original D&D, you don't need a cleric. That like if people invest in certain skills, battle medicine and whatnot, that you actually can get by without a cleric. The game has changed in terms of healing. And I told this to you, I was like, I don't want you to feel like you're pigeonholed to be a cleric. If you want to be the cleric, great, but like don't do it because you feel like we need it. And you were adamant, you were like, no, I want to do this.
Yeah, I agree with that. The more I've seen of it, of 2E, the more I've been like, yeah, this is kind of like the case now. There's different classes that can cast the kind of spells that used to be resigned to the cleric class specifically. Battle healing works differently than it does in 1E, and so yes, you don't necessarily have to be a cleric. And I thought long and hard about it, and I really was thinking about playing an investigator, even if there was another one in the party. I didn't care, because they're so versatile. And I think, if you ask me like a backup character, it's probably going to be an investigator, because you couldn't have a possibly easier class to just bring in and be like, yeah, I'm looking into this thing. It makes a lot of sense. But when I saw this character, I had a picture of this character I wanted to play in my head, and then I wanted to fill in the details. It was a cleric, and I just couldn't get away from that. So I was like, there's something here that's natural and instinctual, and so I want to play it. Not for mechanical reasons, not because divine magic like this is necessary. I don't think that's the case. I do think it's important to have a wisdom-based class. I do think it's important to have high wisdom in the party, at least somewhere, as far as perception goes, as far as other skills that are based around wisdom goes, things like survival and medicine and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree. You don't have to be a cleric, and I want to be.
Is it true that your character is a Christian?
I'm going to be homebrewing a faith, non-Galarian faith called Christianity.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like he was warped through a reality into another place that he doesn't quite understand.
Right.
But he came from Christian church.
Is he like Jesus Christian, or just like I love church and I go on Christmas and Easter?
Well, I don't know. Do you want to get into this? I don't want to keep like making jokes here. This is serious. I'm very excited. This is my faith we're talking about.
Okay.
It's not a laughing matter.
You know what? We shouldn't make jokes about your faith or anyone's faith.
Which
pretend God do you worship?
I don't want to. We really should take this more seriously. Which pretend God do you worship?
No, is it the one with the bow and arrow, or the one that? Oh, are you evil? Are you an evil character?
No.
Is it Naish too?
No, I'm going to be good, and I guarantee you, because you don't do any actual creative work around this podcast, that you've never heard of this deity.
Wow. Okay. I knew you'd go outside.
And I'm
the
going
box.
Galarian. I mean, I'm going Galarian deities.
Well, now I need to look. So this is like not from the core rule book, but from a deeper rule book.
Correct. It wouldn't be from the core rule book, though. Yeah. No, not from the core rule book.
All right. I'm gonna throw out some ideas.
Okay.
That I think it might be.
Okay.
Rovagug. I've heard of
Clearly, you're unfamiliar with the what's it called? The
Pantheon.
Pantheon. Yes.
It's not Hanspur.
No, it's not Hanspur.
All right. I see you want me to dig deeper here. Give me the first letter.
G.
Oh my God, is it Girona?
I don't even know who that is.
Jalander?
No.
Is it a demigod or a straight up god?
Dude, it is as God gets.
What? And it's not Girona? All right, last guess. Gruhasta.
Bam. Got it. You're like a card trick, like you were doing a card trick.
Right.
A magician. You're like, oh, this isn't it?
Girona was
this
the,
isn't it? Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Distraction.
I must have, I don't know what's happening. Oh, I dropped one.
Why don't you look in your wallet?
Gruhasta?
What? It's got
you
my
look in your
signature.
It's inside my pickleback.
How did I? Why don't you open up your pickle? What did you? Wait, who the hell's Juhasta?
Did you just say Juhasta?
Juhasta?
Gruhasta.
Gruhasta.
Gruhasta is he is a kind of an Eastern deity of enlightenment. He's kind of a contemporary of Aurori, but has slightly different aims than Aurori.
When I think Aurori, I think monks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You think enlightenment, self-perfection,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So so Gruhasta is along those lines, except he departs. He was once mortal and became a deity with a mission that is slightly less self-perfection and a little bit more all of us perfection kind of idea. It's the idea of enlightenment at a mass level to try to raise the entire civilization of Galarian to enlightenment, where they were like pass out of the material plane all at once together. And really what it boils down to is he is the god of knowledge. He is the god of like trying to know and understand everything instead of judging on one thing or another, or saying, you know, this deity's right or that deity's wrong. And he goes largely by his nickname, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, which is the Keeper, which I really like.
Well, that's fine.
So he is the Keeper. But I'm going to take it another level deeper because I have to. I can't just go face value. There is a, in the new Gods and Magic book from 2E, they had a concept that jumped out at me, bam, right out of the gate, and it has inspired my character, and I've driven down this line ever since. Okay. And it's called, I'm going to forget it now on camera, but it's something like Deviant Faith, or something like that. And it's basically, you are from a sect of the religion that has broken off from the main one, because it has a different interpretation of the deity.
Oh, that's fun.
So, so it's kind of a sect that has broken off, and it's largely inspired by...
Divergent, maybe.
Divergent, yeah.
Deviant doesn't sound right.
Deviant doesn't sound right,
Divergent.
yeah. Divergent. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head right now, but basically, you can take the God's domains, and you can swap them out. You can change them around. There are some rules to how it works, but you can change them, and if you and you can make them kind of what you want, and then you make a new belief a new way of approaching the deity. And so that is a feat that I wanted to take, and so I took that feat.
Oh, it's a feat.
It's a feat. It's my first level class feat that I took. That is going to, and I changed the typical domains of Grihastha, and I have a slightly different interpretation of how this order of what I am approaches the deity. So I'm excited to play with it.
So you're creating your own order. It's not like
Yes.
out of the book.
Correct.
The Order of the Rose. Or
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Creating my own order.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. This guy's starting to. Is it a guy? I'm assuming
It is
but-
a guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's really starting to take shape. This is interesting. So one of the things we're doing with this, and I've mentioned in all these videos, is like, this is Galarian. It's happening in Galarian, but we want to take it a step further. We want to really make it our own. So like, if you're from Cheliax or Kadira or wherever, True Now, that like you're from an area that is wholly our own, that you yourself create. And one of the beauties of this adventure path is like you don't all have to be from the same area. Everyone's coming from everyone experienced this event differently, and now they're all coming together. So where are you from?
I actually don't know the name of the nation that he's from. I still have to kind of work on that, but I know the city that he's from, which is on an island. So it's an island nation far off the coast of Avestan. You know what? I did have a name for it. It's called the Shadow Isle.
The Shadow Isle?
The Shadow Isle.
Okay.
Far off the coast of Avestan. That it might have a more a name that the people that live there call it, but that's what it's known as.
Shadow Town.
Colloquially in Avestan. But the city that he's from, it's a long story. But the city he's from is Latria. It's called Latria, and Latria.
Is that a Galarian thing, or you made that up?
I made that up, and that is where his abbey is. So he has spent
said
most of his
Latvia?
life. It sounds like Latvia, but it's not.
Oh.
Latria, Latria, Latria. And
If it doesn't look good on a T-shirt, I don't care.
So that is where he is from. It's kind of think Ireland, Scotland in terms of the island itself. It is like high cliffs, rainy weather, cold bluffs. Yes, exactly. And this is where this kind of heritage idea comes from. I'm going to have these people be sort of like an ashen-skinned people, kind of like a gray-skinned people that look. In my mind, I wrote it down on the character sheet that their skin is like the color of stormy seas. It's kind of a grayish, greenish kind of color, and it's this large island where lots of people, are based there. But this separate sect of this religion is like housed there, and that's where it began, sort of because it's separate from. It's really far away from where Grihastha really started, which is all the way over in Kalesh.
Yeah.
So it's like really far from that. But this one person started it there as this separate sect, and the way they believe and approach it. So
that's really cool.
Think kind of like Iron Islands, right? Like it's kind of has a little bit of that vibe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the Iron Islands.
I know you're a big fan.
I love them. When I was talking to Skid tends to be like very influenced by like what he's into at the moment. Do you find that you were influenced by something in particular in coming up with this character, whether it be a TV show, a book, or
I was
soap opera in your case?
I was. It was a book. It was a book that I actually picked up because I knew I wanted to explore cleric, and I had because I wanted to be like.
Was it the Holy Bible?
It was not. My whole approach to the cleric, honestly, was like I really wanted to focus on being a priest. You know what I mean? Like a priest, because I felt like so many clerics that I've seen or played with lately, they're like battle clerics and stuff like that, like war priests and stuff like that, and I kind of wanted to play like a cleric, like the traditional idea of a shepherd of people, coming to this faith or whatever.
D&D, second edition, I have it. The Priest's Handbook.
Exactly,
That's
the priest. And it wasn't like, I didn't have an idea of someone who was built to be an adventurer. I had someone who was built to be, someone who dedicates their life to their faith and to helping others and to, all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to get back into that mode. And so I started consuming literature that was largely based around Roman Catholic kind of stuff, just because that's what I knew, but to try to find inspiration, and I did. I found inspiration in a very famous book called The Name of the Rose. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
It's Rothfuss, right? No. Or is that Name of the Wind?
That's the Name of the Wind. No, Name of the Rose is like an older book that's Italian. It's an Italian book that was translated into English.
And you read the original Italian?
Yes, I only read in the original Italian.
Of course.
They made a movie out of it with Sean Connery, back in the day. But I had heard that it was great, but never read it. It's a lot. It's incredibly dense. It's extremely intense.
How many pages are we talking?
I'm talking 500-600.
Ugh.
There are whole passages just in Latin.
Gross.
No translation. They're just like, deal with it.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. If you don't want to take the time to figure it out, I don't want you to read my book.
Like, you don't deserve my book.
Exactly. Umberto Eco is the name of the author.
Oh, Eco, of course. Yeah.
And so it is. It's kind of about friars, which Franciscans.
Yeah.
Which is what gave me the inspiration for the Deviant Faith, everything, because they are so divergent. They are so. It's called Splinter Faith.
Splinter.
That's what.
That's a great. Paizo, you did it again.
They're so good at what they do.
Okay.
It's inspired by this idea that if you read that book, you get a sense of how intense the differences are between these different orders of Catholicism, that they said, like, their interpretation of the Bible, of God, of even Jesus and what he said can be wildly different. And they can say, like, no, you lead a life this way that we believe is honestly wrong, so we lead life this way. 1200s, 1300s, people are just getting slaughtered. Like the Pope is ordering all of these Franciscans to be put to death and stuff as heretics. Meanwhile, all they're trying to say is like, let's get back to poverty. Let's get back to the way Jesus lived, because the priests were all, the bishops and shit like that were all like political operatives, basically. They were making shit tons of money. They were incredibly corrupt. And these people said, like, no, let's get back to like the core of it. And the Pope started just killing them. So it's like, it's really messed up. And then even you go, once you get into the those, you can call them monks too, and that's the Gruhasta, that's all kind of like came around. But like they, even within their own group, they fracture and they break, and there's like ones from this country and this country that say slightly different ideologies and everything, but they're all based around the same Trinity, the same God, the same whatever. So I was like, I think I've never explored this in a role-playing game, and I'd like to explore it here. So that's kind of the idea. He's going to be a kind of based around a Franciscan from an abbey, where in this case it's brothers and sisters that are a splinter faith that have a new interpretation of Gruhasta.
This took a turn that I was not expecting, and I'm mostly excited for the fact that it will tap into a YouTube algorithm that we haven't explored.
Yes, exactly.
This is all very exciting, and I don't think I know that you're going to bring something to the cleric that we haven't quite seen. It's what I tried to do when we were playing Raiders, and I tried to do it with Colonel Luther. I'm sure you're going to be bringing a unique look at the cleric that we haven't quite seen in this space. Any last things that people should be excited about your character?
I would. The only thing I would say is that based around what I know of the basic themes of Gatewalkers is that I think my character is going to have serious. My character, the way that I picture him now, is going to be very much on the outs with his order because of his exploration of the supernatural and what he has experienced within this realm. He is going to be branded a heretic from his own faith.
From his own splintered faith.
From his own splintered faith, possibly, in a way. It's all about opinions, because at the end of the day, and this is what you get when you read this fucking incredible book, it's like, they're still just people. They're all just people. Yeah. And if a certain guy who's in charge of a certain abbey at a certain time decides you're a heretic, you just get hanged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's objectively true. And it doesn't mean that everyone feels that way. So I feel that he is going to be in an interesting place because of the Gatewalker setup, where you are kind of special. That's going to rub some brothers and sisters the wrong way and some the right way. He might even be seen as closer to Gruhasta than other people. And some people don't like that politically, and some people could even worship that. So it's a very tricky time for him in his life is going from basically no one to someone, and it's very hard to navigate those waters.
Oh, for sure. And who knows if he lives all the way up to 20th level or if he dies at second level. Let's assume he grows in power. What does he then do with that power as he starts to be a splinter of a splinter?
Yeah.
Does he then get high on that, or does he keep it in check? I think that'll be an interesting struggle.
My hope is for him to keep it in check. I really want to play, a humble and fearful kind of cleric that is searching for true enlightenment, not just for himself, but for society as a whole. And that is not meant to sound like there is a path that he can teach you to get there. There isn't, and he knows that. He can't just tell you what to think, and that's how you get to enlightenment. The whole complication of it, and a lot of this comes right out of Faith of Galarian, which is a 1E book that I went and read, has amazing details on Grihasta, and I never heard of this guy, but it's in 1E. I didn't even know about it. Is that there is no one path, but they believe it can happen as long as society as a whole reaches a point where it's just there's this one connection and everyone becomes enlightened at the same time. It's an amazing concept.
Well, I'm excited to see this guy get fleshed out, and I'm all the more excited by the fact that I forgot to tell you that I banned this particular deity from our playthrough. But enjoy the show when it comes out next week.
I'll just start over. I'll just start over.